Thank you guys so much for listening to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. Today's conversation and guests are two of my favorite people in the world, two of my favorite PTs in the world. We have Dr. Sydney Cope. Sydney graduated from Winthrop University, where she played women's lacrosse. She got her doctorate from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, my alma mater. She is now a staff physical therapist in our Glen Burnie location. She is our marketing coordinator. We're going to get into that a little bit. She talks about how to market well, how to get docs to respond, etc. And then we also have returning guest, fan favorite, Dr. Zach Adams. Zach runs our Bear Hills location, one of our busiest locations. He's working with elite level athletes all day, every day. He is a Flying Dutchman. He went to Lebanon Valley College, where he played football. He also got his doctorate in physical therapy there. And today we talk about how to make an awesome session with your patients and with your athletes. We get into the nitty gritty of how to talk to them, how to create buy-in, how to progress them. How do you know, the therapist, that was an outstanding session? I learned so much today. You guys are going to learn a ton as well. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Zach Adams and Dr. Sydney Cope. Welcome back to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. This is going to be awesome. I've been waiting for this for months. You guys are looking at me dumbfounded, but I truly am excited about this. I have two of my very favorite physical therapists here, Dr. Zach Adams, Dr. Sydney Cope. What I want to learn from you guys, what all of our listeners are dying to learn from you guys, is how do you make a great session in physical therapy? You guys come from interesting backgrounds, so I kind of want to hear about some of that and learn how it differs from your backgrounds, also different settings you've worked in. But there's so much that goes into a good session, making it more than just a good workout or just decreasing pain. Like, how do we blend those things to build an outstanding session? I want this to be a master class to everyone listening, how we can get better at what we do. So, by way of introduction, 30 seconds, quick snippet on who you are, Zach Adams, and why you think you're on this podcast. It's an easy one.
Yeah.
You told me to start with a softball.
I know. Those are the ones that trip me up the most, I guess. Okay. So I am Zach Adams, currently working at Bear Hills at True Sports Physical Therapy. I believe I'm on this podcast somewhat due to more of my optimistic nature and a relentless passion for growing this profession and also making every session the best that it can be.
Okay, so you didn't mention it, but I will. Number one, you're the clinic director at Bear Hills, not staff PT at Bear Hills. So you manage others. I think that's worth pointing out. Also, your relentlessness, is that the word you used?
Yes.
Okay. Your relentlessness towards the profession has been clear during your profession. We covered this a little bit last time I had you on the pod, but when we hired you, you didn't have your license yet. So you started working for us, basically treating patients, don't tell insurance companies, full time while you were preparing for the boards, right? You nailed the boards. Then you come on as a staff physical therapist. Then you grow into clinic director. Then our freaking partner in the spot that you were a staff PT at that point, or a clinic director?
Staff PT.
Staff PT. They go out of business. We're trying to figure out we move you to a different location. You kill it there. Then we find you an outstanding location. You become a clinic director. That's relentlessness. Like, you didn't point that out, but like, you're just obsessed with the profession and helping athletes. That shines through, and that's why you became clinic director. That's why you're on this pod. Sydney Cope.
Okay.
Dr. Sydney Cope.
Yeah, I'm Sydney. I am a staff PT at our Glen Burnie location. I think I'm on this podcast because I'm the personality hire. I am the
you got a lot of brains.
Thanks. But above all, I can talk to any patient that comes in, whether they're mine or not mine. Treat them same, like not just have conversations, but if I got to help out and take something on, if somebody's on vacation, whatever, like I've probably had a conversation with them before, even if I've met them one other time. So yeah, on top of loving what I do, like as a job, I love people. And that's like one of the reasons why I went into this, is because I wanted to help people, but I also wanted to like get to know people throughout this process, because this is different than just other healthcare. Like, you spend time with these people, and that's what I love about PT.
Yeah, and you're great at it. You're right. That is why I wanted you to be on this pod, to talk about how to make a great session. you say you're the personality hire. Your personality is awesome. You're also a Division I athlete, like competed at really high levels. Obviously have your doctorate, but also worked in a cash setting
Yeah.
where your job was to drive business.
Yeah.
So all of those pieces are important and what I want to dig into, because that all kind of colors the way you interact, right? And
Yeah.
you're not just like a smiley, bubbly face, although that's important. There's so much more there. So let's lean on that. Okay. I'll start off with another softball. Ready? If I shadowed you for a week, Cope, Zach, what would I see that you do consistently that separates an average session from an elite one? Let's start with Sydney Cope.
Okay. I think the biggest thing that you would see is the connection that I make with people. I'm always following up on how last session was, how they felt, how they came out of it, what they've done in the meantime, and how pain, confidence, etc. has been in the meantime too. I'm also always pulling in like personal life stuff. I think it's really important that we're always addressing that side of things too, because that mental piece plays such a huge role in recovery as well. So throughout our whole session, like I am so focused on that person in front of me. Like I don't like to walk away from people. I don't like to be on my laptop. Like I got to do notes. I'll do them later. Like the person in front of me is my number one priority at the time. And that I think sets that apart in such a huge way, because again, like now you have made that connection with that person and they can lean on you even more throughout that whole process. And I think that's a big thing for me that I try and focus on.
I think that it's 90% of why patients get better
Yeah.
is our ability to connect and interact with them. Where do you get those skills? Like you may have them innately, but if I'm looking to try to add that to my toolbox, how do I get better at that?
I think a lot of it comes from being an athlete and being a leader in athletic settings too, because people are relying on you all the time, whether they have questions, concerns, they feel like they want to get better at something, whatever that is. I want people to feel really comfortable coming to me with things and trusting me with things. So I think just being a leader through athletics my whole life. Like I was captain of my club team. I was the captain of my high school team. I was the captain my senior year in college. Like I just think that letting people rely on you helps that piece of it, because again, they feel comfortable coming to you regardless of good, bad, ugly.
So I'm going to see that when I'm observing you, because you don't have a computer in front of your face.
Yeah.
You don't let other things going on in the clinic distract you. Now, you mentioned that you have an uncanny ability to interact with others in the clinic, not just the patient in front of you. So reconcile those. Patient comes in, you're obsessed with them. You're focused on them. That makes them feel important, seen. They're going to work their hardest because of that. How do you then also interact with all the others in the company or in the clinic?
Yeah, I think I'm big on culture, and I think a lot of us at True Sports are, and it feeling like a really comfortable environment to be in. So I do try and like pull side conversations in with people that are just, even if it's just like a, hey, how are you today? Like when they walk in the door, like that's not really me taking away from my athlete that's in front of me. That's just me like adding comfort to the person that's just stepped in. Or we have a lot of kids that go to the same school or play on similar teams just because they're all coming from a similar area. So allowing them to interact with each other and being a part of that conversation too. Again, my number one goal is the person in front of me, but culture's so huge. And this way, like everybody that walks in the door is comfortable and is like ready to get better that day.
I love how intentional you are about that. Like you're really surgical with the ability to both treat the patient, but also acknowledge everyone else in there. You got to be intentional about it. I think sometimes people have that innately, but the fact that like that's top of mind for you, I think that goes a long way. That's something the audience can learn from. To just say like, I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone where I know this patient is of primary import, but so are other patients, and like bringing them in. So I love that. Z, similar questions. Like, what am I going to see in a Zach Adams session that makes it a great session?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sydney touched on a lot of really good points, and I can speak to some of those as well, where it's that foundational trust and really being locked in with the person that's sitting in front of you.
Yeah, you're really good at that. What else?
Yeah. I really think it boils down to micro assessments. Even on days where we're not necessarily testing, retesting, everything that we're doing is intentional. We're one-on-one. If the squat isn't looking the exact way you want it to, how do we drive that for the rest of the session? Like we come in with goals. How are we achieving those goals? What needs to adjust? A lot of that is built through what Sydney said is you could have an athlete. I could have the best plan I've ever written in my life. They could come in and say like, hey man, worst day of my life. Say, okay, well, I have to meet them where they're at and still looking long-term at that.
So what you're actually saying is, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the details of what they need to get out of the session. I've also seen your obsession with the details with every given exercise. Like, what is the knee doing? What's the ankle doing? Is that exactly where we want it? I'm going to pick my spot to deliver that feedback. You're very good at that attention to detail. I just got 2 football players that play professionally. They have in-house care. They have insurance covering their sessions elsewhere, and still they're coming into True Sports. And I said, like, what the hell are you guys doing here? Like, aren't you getting the best? And they said, it's the attention to detail. Like, it's the feedback with every rep, every set to make sure I'm getting the most out of it. You do that better than anyone I know. It's amazing. But I think that's an important distinction and delineation as to what makes you great. What else? Because there's actually something else that you're amazing at that delivers a great session. What else would you say it is?
I think some of it I touched on in maybe the first answer of
there's no room for modesty here.
Of optimism. Sometimes
optimism.
I think sensible optimism is something that I try and carry both inside and outside of the clinic, where it's a recognition that, you know, things are going to hit the fan.
Yep.
Everything's not going to be hunky-dory, but in the end, things will work out. And if you can really get people to buy in on that throughout the session, it makes reflecting back, oh, I am making progress, even though today isn't the best day.
Yep.
Or, man, I'm really crushing today. Like, this was a huge week.
So sensible optimism, great term. Definitely see that with Zach Adams. I also see your unbridled excitement. Like, you get so riled up that the entire clinic knows when you're testing because you're cheering that patient on. So I think that's another thing and another role that PTs have that doesn't get enough airtime, I think. Like, we talk about smarts. We talk about the ability to relate. It's also like, how good of a cheerleader are you? And how important that is. You're an outstanding cheerleader. Where did that come from in your background? And if I don't have that in my background, where can I find it and learn that?
I think in my background, it came from somewhat personal injuries and going through some of these processes where you have to celebrate little victories. And despite outcome of day, there are things to celebrate. And some of that's reflecting back on, hey, if I got to this goal, whether it was athletically or academically, like, what things did I do right? Even if the outcome wasn't exactly what I wanted, it's like, okay, let's double down on those type of things.
Yep.
So I think some of it comes from, if you don't have it, is reflect back, celebrate little successes, and then just run with that.
Give me an example of a time you've done that while treating.
While treating?
Yeah.
I think it was this ACL's first time like really being loaded. Felt really good in session, swelled up, came back so demoralized of, oh man, like I really feel like I took a huge step back after we tried to push. Celebrated the fact, hey, did a little manual, knee calmed down a little bit, but you can still heel pop. So we touched on our long-term goals, triple extension, being powerful, being springy. Look, box 1 is already checked. So we can celebrate that. Even when we know we did too much, we're still checking boxes.
Yeah. That's super important. I was going to say, like, last night I had a 240-pound athlete who's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. We did a 12-inch box jump, 2-legged. He's a ACL BTB. And he gets down from the box after we did it. He's like, hell yeah, I never like thought that would be a big deal. But the reason I bring that up is it's really important to like put the successes in the context of like what they were able to do a couple weeks ago. And sometimes you got to explain that. Like I got lucky with this guy because he's really bright. Like he's very attuned and aware, and like he realizes that's a big success. oftentimes athletes are like, dude, like this, it's 12 inches. Like I have a 40-inch vert. Like what, 12 inches isn't a big deal, but it is a big deal. And I think sometimes pointing it out is super important. I've seen you do an unbelievable job of that. So, yeah, you should have included that as to why
I fumbled the softball. I
Yeah,
asked for it and fumbled it. Classic.
Okay. An internal checklist. Like we all have to have things that we want a patient to accomplish within a given session, right? So today we're working on, let's go upper extremity because we talk so much lower extremity. Today, we need the cuff to be loaded somehow. So I know that I want my athlete to feel their posterior shoulder screaming during the session. When you're putting together or looking back on an outstanding session, what are some of the check boxes, or what are some of the boxes you need checked to make the athlete know and for you to know this was an awesome session with my athlete? Z, we'll start with you.
So I think the internal checklist really starts before, right? For me personally, I like to make two kind of separate plans or avenues in my head. We know what we did last time, what was successful, what wasn't successful. Maybe I don't know all of the answers to that yet. So I'm going to kind of make like, hey, here's upper end. Everything comes in. It feels great. We're ready to rock and roll. We're really burning shoulder. Mm-hmm. Here's what we're getting to. Make a lower end of maybe things didn't go quite as well. What do we need to adjust? And then during is constant feedback. If I may love I think upper extremity is a great example of this. If we touch on external rotation specifically, a million different variations to do it. If all you're feeling is your delt, I may love the exercise, but we have to be able to adjust. I have to be able to cue you out of that. So during is the internal checklist of, yes, are we performing it? Does it look aesthetically like we're achieving what we want to? But more importantly, are you feeling what you need to feel?
Yeah. Yeah. And you make a good point, because step number one isn't necessarily the success or the outcome. Step number one is having a checklist of what you want to hit. So like thinking through your head, and like I got another athlete who will say to me, like, is that at the end of a session, did we do everything that you planned out? He can't have that conversation with me if I haven't planned out what I want to do. Like if you're just spitballing, I think that's a recipe for disaster of a session, versus when I ask you what's creating a good session. Number one, you got to have a checklist. Two is you got to alert the athlete, or at least prove it to them that they are making progress, checking. And then three is celebrating that success. But you can't get to step three without step one. How about you, Cope?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar. I get asked all the time by patients, like, do you guys just wing this, or do you? And I think at a certain point when you've done this for, a couple of years, whatever, like you could, but I think one of the things that sets us apart, and I don't know if everybody does this, but it is this checklist. It is this, okay, what did we do last time? How did it go? What do I still want to work on? Like what's next step? What's next in our timeline? Things like that. Coming up with a couple different ways to achieve that, because you do have to be able to pivot. Like Zach kind of mentioned already, like if you're not getting out of it what you want to get out of it, you have to have another way to get there. Or if they come in and they're feeling like crap, like you got to meet them where they're at. So I think it is sort of that, having a couple of different checklists and not tying yourself down to, let me write down these 6 exercises that I want to do. And the only way we were successful today is if we did these 6 things. Like that's not what PT is. That's not what good PT is. You have to be able to adjust. Yep. But you still have to have like a framework that you're going off of, because otherwise you're just pulling from too many places, and it's hard to meet goals when you're doing that if you don't have a clear path.
Yeah. So, okay. So super important to point those out. It's also important to understand, like, a great session doesn't mean you did every exercise you planned, and you have to be able to articulate that to the patient. So like a patient will say to me, hey, did we cover everything that you had? And sometimes the answer to that is no, we only got through 6 of the 8 or whatever, but you have to be able to frame it to the patient. The goal of the session wasn't to get through every exercise. The goal of the session was to burn out your cuff. And did we accomplish that? Great. And if not, okay, maybe there's something else we can do, but it's not always what you planned out that is like completing that list that makes it a great session, but it's these other goals that eventually stack on one another to get the athlete all the way back. So That makes a lot of sense. Now, Cope, you worked in a different setting before you got to True Sports. So you're in a cash clinic, right? And you're working one-on-one, right, with athletes. How is it different, if at all, in the insurance model like us versus the cash model in terms of how you approach a session, maybe what the patient's expectation is? Kind of juxtapose those two or compare those two to
Yeah,
one another.
sure. I think the biggest difference is the time constraint, and us being so big on one-on-one care in True Sports, but also being so busy. Obviously, my patients are in the clinic for longer than that 45 minutes, um, doing a couple of things on their own, like that we've walked through and things like that, like things that I know that they can be successful with on their own, whether that's burning out knee extensions, whether that's burning out bicep curls, whatever.
Mhm.
In the cash setting, all of our sessions were at least an hour, if not 90 minutes, if not 2 full hours. So I had a ton of time.
Yep.
Like we could spend the first 45 minutes just doing manual stuff.
Mhm.
I could take them through every single test imaginable in that first hour and then use my second hour to make adjustments or like do a whole full strength session, whatever. I think that's probably the biggest thing is that I felt less kind of tied down. But on the flip side, I was treating a lot less patients. So my day was still booked, but my time slots were allotted for longer time with that
Mhm.
person. And here it is like I have to be more efficient, right? Like I got to get people in and out so that I can remain one-on-one good care, and not have people be there for 3 hours just kind of like bopping around doing whatever.
Yeah. How did you make that adjustment?
Practice. I think the first couple like months probably that I was with True Sports, I was almost like under loading people here because I like didn't know what a 45-minute session felt like. So the plans that I was coming up with were like too short because I was like, I think I can only do like 4 things with this person, whatever. And um, so people were like done and still had 15 minutes left. And at that point, I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to like kind of come up with something else for them to do, pulling something out of the back of my hand, whatever. But I definitely think I went more on the opposite end rather than having them do too much because I was worried about them being on their own without me because I hadn't done that. Every patient that I had treated previously was always only with me
Right.
for a really long time.
Yeah, I think it's a different skill set. Like I ran into it the other way where I was working in a clinic that was seeing 2-3 an hour. And then I'm like, what do I do with 45 minutes? Like that is an eternity. And it's just like a matter of like where you're coming from. I think you're right. Like it takes some time to get a better feel for that. How could you have lessened that learning curve when you got here?
I definitely think I could have leaned more on some of my other clinicians,
Yeah.
and maybe even like planned better, and sort of gone more on the like, what are the goals that I want to achieve versus like just picking a couple of exercises because again, like I could do so much with people before that I really didn't have huge session goals because I could do manual, I could do like speed and agility, I could do strength. Like we could do it all in
Yep.
that period of time that I had people. And I think when I switched over to True Sports and became sort of more in this insurance based world, I like I didn't know how to do that. So I was like picking one of each and incorporating a little bit of each thing and not really making progress. So I think having maybe like asking more questions and having people maybe like do even like a shadow session with me could have been more helpful just to help me sort of like fix my brain in a one spot and trying to instead of trying to do 16 things at the same time.
So that's really good advice. That's something that I wish new hires or students would do more of, like to understand, like when you join True Sports or whatever clinic you're joining, whatever company you're joining, like they are there to help you wrap their arms around you and get they ultimately want the best session for the patient. So like use those people around you who have already done it. I think that goes a really long way. It's really good advice. Okay. You guys talked about relating to your patients. We talked about your excitability or passion. How does that differ depending upon the athlete that's in front of you? How do you manage it with, on one hand, a 14-year-old? Let's say you're seeing them from 1 to 145, and then at 145, you have a 65-year-old. Very different goals, very different personalities, obviously different demographics. How do you adjust, and what are some of the tricks that you've seen that have allowed you to relate to anyone in front of you? Zach.
I think it really comes down to finding common ground first. You have to know the person before you can make that switch easier. Because I don't think if it's the first time I'm meeting the 14-year-old or the first time I'm meeting the 65-year-old
Yep.
in this example, that shift is necessarily as smooth as it is the second time, because I got to know the person.
Mm-hmm.
I think those sessions look a little bit different. For me personally, is like, I know with, generally speaking, the younger demographic, I can be a little bit more excitable, a little bit louder. With the 65-year-old, I'm doubling down on maybe some of my newfound cooking passions.
Okay.
Trying to get into it, both successes and failures.
There you go. Okay. So, but what you're saying is you're finding something to relate to them about. Give me an example of where you've struggled with that. There has to be a 14-year-old that had, let's say, very poor social skills. How do you deal with something like that? Like, how do you break the ice there?
I'll double down on some humility, whether it's something I'll call it dumb that I did. I was like, I'll snap a band into me, like make a joke, kind of point the eyes back at me, and then just pepper with questions. And when I finally get an answer that isn't yes, no, it's like, let's double down on that.
Yeah, that's a win, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, when you can get that, I mean, as a parent of teenagers, like, I totally get it. Like, you have to find something that is exciting to them. It's similar to what Cope said early on, which is, it's not about Zach Adams, right? It's about the 14-year-old in front of you and some way to crack it. What other tricks do you have, Cope?
Yeah, I like tend to get very excited when I like finally have that breakthrough conversation with that kid where like the whole time they're just like, yeah. Like, oh my God, this kid
Painful.
hates me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have younger brothers. So like I pride myself in being like, no, I can talk to this kid. Like, come on. But they're in their mid-20s now. Like they're not 10 anymore. But I think it just takes practice. Like listening to other people in the clinic, kind of like what we've mentioned, like you're not the only 14-year-old in here. Like one of them's coming in and is talkative and is talking about things that are relevant in his world and things like that. But I think kind of like what Zach mentioned, like just keep talking to them. Like they might never break through. Like you might never, it might just be how that kid is. Like they're just a quiet kid. But I think if you just keep trying and keep trying to figure out things that you can relate to them with, or finding that thing that like they are passionate about, it's such a cool feeling. And then all of a sudden they come in and they start telling you about their day and stuff like that. But it just takes practice. And again, like you're not going to get it with everyone, but it's the thought that counts sometimes. And
yeah. I mean, I'm in the middle of a book. I forget the title of it, but he talks about the definition of happiness, and he says happiness is outcome minus expectation, right? So when those kind of come into play, like, or when those are synchronous, that's when we're quote unquote happy. But if we can adjust the expectation of the outcome and not have an expectation of the outcome, that's when happiness ensues. Or I would take it a step further. That's when connection ensues, right? So we're looking for the patient to be happy. That's a great session, along with our physiologic outcomes and stuff like that. But if our expectation is that this patient is going to be effusive, this patient is going to be bubbly, and that's simply not the case, the problem is not the patient, because they are what they are. The problem is our expectation of what we want that patient to be. And I think if you can remove that, that's another way to get to a great session. Like it's a matter of what they think about the session, not about what we think about the session. So kind of comes back to that. There are a lot of stakeholders in a good session. There's the athlete, but rarely is it just a singular athlete. I think we see this like in our young adult population. It's just about the patient. when we're dealing with younger kids, or if we're dealing with geriatrics with like aides and stuff like that, or doctors that are more involved, there are other players involved in a session. So how do you handle communication of those other players that aren't necessarily there? I'm thinking about coach, I'm thinking about referring physician, I'm thinking about strength coach. Like how and when do you loop those in? Because I think they're essential to making a great outcome in session.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think as early as possible. The last thing that I want to hear is like, oh, I was talking to my coach and it was like, oh, I didn't even know that you were back with your coach yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's moreover, hey, this could be longer down the road, but let's start that communication process early. I think that is going to drive better outcomes ultimately. Yeah. I know for myself, I've had to set more, I guess I'll call it like strict times when it's, hey, we need to schedule these emails to go out. I need to schedule these texts to go out, which I didn't know you could do on your phone. This is like a giant epiphany for me. Yeah. So it's like I can type it at 2, but send it when everyone else wakes up. So I think that's been instrumental. So is it early and really making the time to communicate with everybody. And I think some of that is depending on the person standing in front of you. I know we've all felt it in the room where you've been that primary point of contact, and also when you're not. So we cannot over communicate with that. And as long as everyone's on the same page, I think that's going to drive.
Okay. So, and that's super important, like with the coach, right? Another thing that can help drive, and I want to like bring it back to the session. It's important that the athlete knows I'm in communication with your coach. I'm in communication with your doctor. I think that can help the session. I want to just double click. I hate that phrase, but I want to double click on the idea of communicating with a surgeon, because I think that can make or break a session, can make or break a referral source. So give me some tips and tricks. Both of you guys are very good at this. Cope, we didn't even get into your role as marketing director at True Sports, but that obviously means you're good at that. When do you get in touch with the physician? How have you seen it be successful? Maybe how have you seen it go awry?
Yeah. Same standards, I think, apply early and often. And I think it helps when it's a patient that or a surgeon that you've gotten patients from before, obviously. But regardless, I think sometimes over explaining and over communicating is better than under.
Yep.
I don't care if they get annoyed with me. Like, at least I kept them in the loop, whether things are going really well or whether things are going really poorly. With a lot of surgeons, you may not necessarily get a response. But again, like, you did your part to reach out and let them know what's going on. And I think sometimes it helps when you can figure out what the actual best way to get in touch with them is. Like, maybe it's their PA, like maybe it's their front desk, maybe it's not them specifically.
Yep.
Maybe you have to reach out to somebody else to get the message to them. But early and often, for sure. Definitely had some go really, really well, and have had surgeons continue to refer to us because we kept them in the loop. We had really good success with their athletes. But we've also I personally definitely have had some poor outcomes, where it's not that the surgeon wouldn't refer to us anymore. They still trusted what we did. It was just maybe I stepped outside of what they wanted.
Give me specifics around that.
Yeah. The whole Cyclops lesion thing is so wishy-washy. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to get an image of it. Everybody wants to wait until this specific day. But if I'm wary of it early, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, if we can get on top of this before it becomes a huge issue, or just before that 4-month mark, whatever they want to wait until, I'm helping somebody's timeline. Like, again, going back to our very first question, my priority is this athlete in front of me. So if I'm going to piss you off a little bit, I'm going to piss you off a little bit. And some people do not respond well to that. And I've had surgeons who will not get an image, will not do that follow-up, like just will basically disregard my concerns.
Yep.
And there are some times where you have to make it a little bit ugly and have that person go see somebody else. But I've also had patients who have been really wary to do that too, because they have a good relationship with that surgeon. It's a family friend, it's a neighbor, they did dad's knee, whatever. Like, and then it's, that struggle of a relationship too, of, well, now I'm making the athlete in front of me uncomfortable. But
Yep.
my job is to get you better. And it's a really hard part of our profession, I think, is because it's the ugly truth of, yeah, nobody wants to address the elephant in the room, but like, I'm always going to do it.
Yeah. But there is an elephant, right?
Yeah.
I think like that's really important. I don't think you can go wrong. I'm open to feedback here of putting the patient first. And hey, it might affect future referral sources or future sources or streams. It might affect the way the doctor feels about you. It might even affect the way the patient feels about you. But what's our role? Like, what's our job, right? How do you get surgeons to respond to you? You're the marketing queen, right?
Yeah. I love a phone call. Like, I don't text, email, I want to hear the tone in your voice. I want you to answer me in real time. Like, I either want face to face or voice to voice. Like, miscommunication is so much more likely when you are sort of going back and forth via email. And I'm a huge advocate for, hey, let's set up a time to talk.
Yeah.
Or let's set up a time to get one of our clinicians into your office or have you come to us. Like, maybe we're not specifically discussing a patient at that time, but I just think it's important to like have that FaceTime so that, hey, they can see that like you don't mean harm. Like, maybe my email, like, I try my best to not come off as rude. Like, you have to butter them up a little bit when you're sending these emails because you want them to look into this for the sake of the patient. But I think I don't sound mean, right? So like, I think if people saw me, they'd be like, "Well, this girl's like, does have a mean bone in her body, whatever." But I think if you can have that conversation real time, I find way, way higher success because again, like, you can really get a feel for, and they can get a feel for, like, where both of you are at in the moment versus just yelling at each other over email.
So I think that's a dream. You're right. To be able to talk to a surgeon, be able to meet with them. It's just really hard. Like, they think they're so goddamn important, unfortunately. So if your only access to them is via email, Zach, have you come up with a way to word an email or a text or what to get them to respond?
I don't know if I have exact phrasing because it can be a little bit person dependent.
Yep.
I will structure texts, emails similar. And just for me personally, I respond better to bullet points and kind of things like that. So it'll be some sort of greeting, but I'll separate it from the meat and beans of, hey, brief introduction, because if it's somebody that I don't know, it's just more over like, this is who I am.
Yep.
So hopefully you read the email, but the meat and beans of it below, I'm separating that, following up with, if it's someone I haven't talked to, I'm throwing my number in there, even if it is in your signature. No one's reading that far. Like, throw it in at your closing. So that's
important. That's interesting. Yeah.
And then hopefully establishing some sort of ending greeting that opens it up to like, hey, I want feedback on this, not closing it down so that it's like, hey, this is a situation, thanks, bye. Moreover, hey, nice to meet you. Here's what I really am emailing you about. Please follow up with me. I welcome all the input.
Yeah, like that's really good advice. Another thing I would say, because we just had this Cyclops issue in one of our clinics, Zach, that you were at, where you were you were talking to the patient, getting in touch with the doc, or trying to. So was the treating therapist, right? And nothing from the doc. And it wasn't until I kind of blew him up with the text being like, my guys have reached out to you on this date, this date, this date. Haven't heard anything. Here's what the patient's doing. And I get a text back. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because sometimes the source is important. So, like, if you can't get a hold of someone, does anyone else in your network know that guy so that you can get in touch with them? I think that's really valid and important. I also think it's like when you're talking to the patient, because that's what we're here discussing today in today's pod, is giving the patient some comfort as you interact with them. Like, I have seen this from this surgeon, I've seen that from that surgeon. How do we get you in touch with that surgeon? Because this is his expertise. Like, the background is really important. That seems to be like a theme of what we're talking about. Like, that prep and background, whether it be in a session or in a conversation, is super important in order to get buy-in. And that's what makes a great session. Okay. We talked about a lot of our successes, talked about some of our failures. Zach, can you give me an example of a bad session you had with an athlete?
Yeah. I think I alluded to
It's hard,
it a little
isn't
bit.
it? It's
Yeah.
hard for you to come up with.
No, there's just so many. I'm just no. I think a really bad session is something that we maybe talked about in the beginning as a strength, but sometimes I'll over cue and over analyze, and I'll look up and it's been 30 minutes and I'm like, my goal was quad strength. We haven't passed like a side step.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Or I think that combination of a hyperfixation on are we doing everything 100% right definitely can be helpful. In the instance of the 14-year-old, sometimes I need good, not necessarily. Like, good can't be an enemy of great. So
like that. Write that
doubling
down.
down
Put that on a t-shirt.
on
Trademark.
that, and maybe to a fault, I'll like get too into the personal stuff. We'll end up just chit chatting, and I look up, I'm like, oh man, like we've done a set.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm
Yeah.
like, I've spent 30 minutes talking to people before, and I'm like, oh, good.
right. And so like that, so that's an interesting point. Like, we spent the beginning of this conversation talking about creating buy-in, dialogue, reading the room, etc. And what happened to like the physiologic side of it? Like, did we actually get to load it? So, okay, session is done. In retrospect, how do you grade yourself and say to yourself, man, that was an awesome session? Like, what are you looking for cues that it was a great session?
Body language from the patient. How are they when they leave? From a, again, physical, like, are they gonna fall down the stairs when they leave? Heck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
do they need to use that handrail? Heck yeah. Okay. But also like their demeanor too. Like, was I a positive influence in their life today? I challenged them well, I educated them well. We had good conversation. I let them vent a little bit about whatever. Like,
Was I a positive influence in their life?
yeah, that's like my goal.
That's a high level. That's awesome. And so you're gonna know that you were. How?
I don't know if no is I don't think we ever know, but again, yeah, I think it's just like how they leave. Like, what does their like posture look like? Like, are they walking out and just like look completely defeated by what we did today? Like, man, I feel like I failed on this, that, and the other. Like, I couldn't get that one movement down, like whatever. Like, even if that was the case, like, was I able to flip the script? Kind of like what we talked about, like little victories.
Yeah.
Like, it's not always going to be perfect. It shouldn't always be perfect. But yeah, like looking at their body language and how they're leaving. I also think a lot of it is self-reflection too. Like, did I check those boxes of, yes, we hit this muscle group. Yes, we worked on this range of motion. And yeah, we worked on that skill, things like that. I think that helps you be able to tell if you did a good job in that session. And then on the flip side too, like being able to come out with, okay, because we saw this is what I want to do next time. And like having a really clear idea of what next visit looks like because of the things that you saw in that session on that day.
Yeah. Have you ever had a patient refer a friend or family to you?
Yeah.
Great way to see, right? Have you ever looked at your no-show rates, cancel rates?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. That's a great way to see, like, do they value what I'm doing here? And do they want to come back? Have you ever looked at number of visits per case? Yeah. that's a great way to look at, like, these are all ways where you can actually grade, how am I doing? And what's important when you're doing that to see, like, am I providing great sessions and great value, is to see, like, how hard is that for me to do? How onerous does the patient feel like I'm doing it? But more importantly, like, it lets you look inside yourself and say, like, what's my role in this? Like, you guys heard me preach about this when we were doing extreme ownership. We just did a captain's academy, which is our leadership modules at True Sports. Like, what part of this process do I own? And I think those are great ways to do it. So I like what you said about what's their body language, how are they leaving the session, etc. But then the next step, like you were saying, is, and what can I do better, right? And, like, how can I alter it? Zach, what about you? How do you know it's been a great session?
Sometimes if I'm questioning that, I'll straight up just ask.
Awesome. Yeah.
And if the answer is no, it's a willingness to be like, you know what, I did drop the ball on that. I think a lot of it's, you have to kind of weed through, is like, hey, how's this feel? It's like, oh yeah, it feels good. It's like, does it feel good because you're trying to shut me up, or how's it actually
Don't
feel?
throw me any softballs. So, like, really tell me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really awesome. I find myself doing that a lot. Even now, like, I've been doing this forever. I'll be like, so, like, what'd you think?
Yeah.
You know, how'd that go?
And I think you get some of it the next time you see them. Like,
Yep.
if you're showing some semblance of vulnerability, it's like, you're right. Maybe we didn't load it up enough.
Mm-hmm.
We will next time. Like,
Yeah.
I promise you that. And it almost, so you can double down on, if it didn't go well, when it does, like, awesome. Guess what? See you again, because we're going to do the same thing.
Right. Okay. So that's awesome.
Variations.
It is, but like you said, like, doubling down, right? And find what works for that patient. And that's a good way to think about the next session of what a good session will be. Patient walks into you, hamstring tendinosis. I think we're good. Pray to God. Everyone listening, like, there's a lot of tech that goes into these setups. So some grace will be awesome. Hamstring tendinosis, patient walks in. Patient says, I really think I need some hands-on soft tissue stuff. And in your giant brains, you're thinking, like, the research is nothing around massage therapy. Like, it's about loading the hamstring, et cetera, blah, blah. How do you handle that situation, Sid?
I am still probably doing some form of manual. But I'm also explaining to the person what the purpose of that is. I do fully believe in, like, the power of human touch. I think it's so important. Like, you know, the people that weren't hugged as children, like, it's kind of sad, right? Like,
It's sad. Yes, great point.
I think it just plays a role in, like, that trust, right? But I also think it's important to explain, like, yeah, we're not doing this the whole time, like, and helping them see that. But if I have to spend 5 minutes doing some sort of soft tissue for them to be ready to rock and roll for the rest of that session, that's worth it in my eyes. But I'm not going to, like, BS them, right? Like, again, we're not gonna do heat. We're not gonna do stim. We're not gonna sit here.
What if they come in and say, listen,
I've
heard that electric stim really helps hamstring tendinosis. You do what?
Explain them the actual research.
Okay. And when they say, yeah, but I just feel like it's gonna help.
Yeah, tough. Definitely tough, because I am a people pleaser for sure. But I also know that what I do works, and what other clinicians do outside of that works. So sometimes, again, like, we'll go a little bit in their direction. I'm not doing stim. I don't even think we have it at any of the clinics.
We have stim. We just don't have.
But not,
IFC.
You know, yeah.
Was the setting I used to use when I worked for others. Yes. And what was crazy about that was the tech would set them up.
Yeah.
But they couldn't.
They just had to press the start.
But they couldn't push start because that would be highly illegal. Okay, so you will entertain it. Like, if it is something that we have, I really want cupping. You don't think cupping is necessarily what they need? Okay, let's do cupping for a couple minutes.
It's not detrimental.
Yep.
So to that point, I would say if this helps with their buy-in and this helps them trust me, especially if they're a newer patient, I will throw them that bone. But again, like the whole time I'm explaining why we're doing this,
Yep.
what we need to do after this to make sure that that really works, tie the two together, and kind of giving them that, prepping them for the next session too. I think at the end of that session of like, hey, hope that felt really good, but like the bulk of what we got out of this was from that eccentric loading. Like that is how we're really going to get better. Like when you come in sore next time, like that's a good thing. Like we don't need, massage just because you're sore. Like soreness is a good response.
I love that you hit on what I think is super important, which is teasing the next session.
Yeah.
Right. That's super important. And giving them a framework, they're going to think about over the next few days of what to expect. Like we talked about, like expectations and outcomes directly affect the way something is perceived. So I think that's a great way to go about it. Zach.
I'm very similar in the fact that I will still do maybe some of the manual, touch on some of those things. If it's not about educating on current research and what you truly believe, I'll also kind of use that time to hype up the rest of the session where it's like, yeah, we're doing this now, but oh man, like running, it's going to be so sick. Guess what? We're going to prep that today. That's the ISOs, baby. Like
You're a good salesperson.
I also feel like it's like a good time for you to like have some of those conversations with your patient too. And then you guys can both be totally locked in for the rest of it. Like, yeah, we got our 5 minutes to like, tell me about your weekend, tell me about blah, 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 whatever. And then once we're ready to go, like we're ready to go.
Rolling.
Yeah.
Love that.
and
Okay.
for some of the stim units, like the IFC 10s,
You just don't even turn it on. You just put the pads on them.
or I'm explaining like, hey, this made you feel really good. We can move with it on. We don't have the ones that are strapped
and then
to the
you
table.
go neuro. You're sick.
Let's go.
You're sick, dude. Okay. You guys have both been CIs.
Yeah.
Right? Both had students. So talk to me about everything we covered today in terms of making a great session. Where do the rookies struggle? Yes, Dr. Adams.
Yeah. I think early on, and some of this was self-reflection of where I struggled early, is you are so, if you're doing the on paper things of prepping, like I haven't seen this, I need to be really well versed in it, you kind of fall short on the communication. Or you lean on, if you're a strong communicator, I lean on the fact that I can relate to these people, but maybe it escapes out 10 minutes at the end of the session of like, oh man, I didn't prep well enough on the clinical side of it. And embracing no one knows it all. Like that was a big moment for me. And I think that it's important to tell all of the quote unquote rookies in the field is I don't know is an okay answer to the person standing in front of you, as long as I don't know doesn't traverse sessions where it's, I don't necessarily know what's going on at this moment. Here's where my head's at. I will get clarity and we will solve this together.
Yeah, I love that. Where you get in trouble, where a rookie might get in trouble is pretending they know.
Yeah.
And then, dude, they sniff it out in a second, the patients, right? So like the rest, that session will not be good if you're freaking faking. It will be fine if you say, I'm not sure, let me go ask Cope or whatever. But I also love your point of like not letting it carry over. I don't know is okay today. It's not okay tomorrow. So that's really awesome. What about you, Cope? What do you think they're screwing up?
I feel like a lot of the issues that either students or new hires or whatever like struggle with is trying to be their mentor. Like I've had students come in and they like mimic me at the beginning, and that's not, hey, I don't want that. Like I'm good. I got me. You go, you be you, right? Like that's not how you become a better clinician, though. You have to establish your own way of doing things, your own way of treating, your own way of learning, your own way of interacting with people. But I feel like it's really easy for them to just like get latched on to how you do things because they see your success, and then it just starts to be how they treat everybody. And but you have to, as a CI, you have to recognize it and nip it in the bud and challenge them to be their own clinician. But I think that's the biggest thing they struggle with is, hey, there's this clinician already in front of me that's been doing this for X amount of years. Let me just do what they're doing. So they do like the same exercises, the same, like I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about from a connection standpoint? Like what do students struggle with when trying to connect with their patient?
I think part of it could be like too personal, too quick. Like again, like they see that relationship that we might have with people, and it is something that we've established over a year, 6 months, however long. And they try and dive like too deep down that rabbit hole too quickly versus like just having basic conversations with the person in front of them, like figure out what they do for work or like what they're doing this weekend. Like if you dive too quick and you could piss somebody off, you could make somebody uncomfortable. I think that's probably an issue.
Yeah, I definitely see that where maybe they're asking too much or they're not interested,
Yeah.
right? And maybe even worse, they make it about
I
themselves.
was gonna say me driven.
Yeah, I see that a lot. I see that. I also see it's such a stressful environment being a student. So you're trying to please the CI, you're trying to please the patient, you're trying to make sure you check all the boxes. Like on the notes side, like I see them living in their computer. That kills me. I think that's one way to harm a session. Another thing is body language. I just think students sometimes just think they just act too casual, where they're slumping on boxes, or they're not really looking, or they're not dressed appropriately, or something like that. I know I've shared it on the pod before. When I was a high school intern for a world-renowned surgeon, I shadowed him, and he had to pull me aside, be like, Yoni, two things. One, we don't wear sneakers here. Like, we're surgeons, and they're paying a bunch of money. They're waiting a long time. You're not the surgeon, but you're with me. Like, dress it up a little bit. I wanted to kill the guy, but he was right. Another thing he said was, stop biting your nails. And that really pissed me off because that was like a major habit of mine, but it made the patient feel like there's some schmuck in the back that doesn't care about what's going on. I went back to market to this guy 15 years later. Hey, doc, remember me? I was with you in high school. I opened up my own practice. He's like, yeah, you were the guy who was always biting your nails. Like, how do you remember that? But it sticks. It sticks. And I still haven't gotten a referral from that doc, but it sticks. Those are the things I see him screwing up.
Yeah.
Anything like that from that you guys have seen? Better story than that, Zach?
I don't know about better than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think that, like what you're saying, body language goes a long way, and I don't know if it's everybody or sometimes that you can almost, it's palpable that I'm uncomfortable.
Yep.
It's like you have to be able to embrace that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And explaining like, hey, failure's expected and okay.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not going to pass if you don't do something wrong.
And almost celebrated, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a great outlook. You're reminding me of a case. We're talking about body language and what's acceptable inside of a clinic. You had a patient Monday night. We're recording on a Friday, I think. He was wearing headphones in the session. 16-year-old, obviously, thereabouts, had headphones that looked like the headphones I'm wearing right now, and they were on the entire time. I thought the kid was being an asshole. What's crazy is Zach, it was not affecting Zach at all. Like, just interacting with the kid as if this was totally normal. You can't do that with your student, but with a patient, I thought that was a really high level of giving the patient what they need, letting him know that he's going to get a great session, even though he's doing something that makes him look like an asshole. That would piss me off. I would be offended by him. Like, what the F? Like, how dare you wear? You were amazing about that. Walk me through that session.
Well, it's okay because it's not like until it's not. So for him, he has done it before. The first thing I asked is like, hey man, like, what are we listening to? And I said it softer. If he didn't look up, it's like, hey man, it's just a problem. Already had 1 year out. And he's like, I'm listening to this. I'm, just not feeling like the music in here. I was like, dude, we can change it. Like I'll be, and he was like, no, maybe not. A little bit of awkward about what he was listening to. Totally fine. So it's like, okay, you can hear me, not impacting anything. I'm not going to let
Zach, great example of that session is not about you.
Yeah.
Like that session's about the kid. That was awesome. That was elite session providing therapy. I mean, that's why
thank
you're
you.
here. Yeah. Yeah. Big clap for Zach Adams. Also, if you're an athlete listening to this, take off your goddamn headphones. But really, really impressive. Okay, you ready for the Eric Cressy lightning round? Yeah,
I guess
buckle
so.
up,
Better
Cope.
come
Here
up
we
to
go.
the-
Okay. What is the most overrated intervention in sports PT right now? Dr. Adams.
Whew.
Zach said he doesn't like cups. He thinks that's the most overrated. What about dry needling? Overrated, underrated?
Appropriately
Yeah,
rated.
I was gonna say rated.
Appropriately rated.
Yeah.
The hell does that mean?
Like you can't drink the Kool-Aid. It has a place. We can make big changes in session. I think it's one of the only things in our profession that's like, hey, I'm applying immediate feedback.
Mhm.
How long it lasts, I think, is important to talk about. It's like, yeah, it may feel good for a day or two. This can't be our crutch forever.
Yeah.
As long as you're not drinking, like this is the only fix to that problem. We're sitting at the right spot. If it's yes, this absolutely will be solved by a needle. I don't
I
necessarily
haven't seen it.
agree.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But
Yeah, I'm with you. Cope.
I think like any and all of the balance, Bosu ball, throwing a ball at an athlete, like those kinds of things. I'm like, what are we actually
I hate when
getting out of
that
this?
is your sports specificity.
Yeah, they're like stand on one leg on this foam pad and
Yep.
throw me a baseball. I'm like, what? You're
Why?
never standing on a foam pad on the baseball.
Yeah, good call. Definitely not on a Bosu ball. Okay. Next, one thing sports PTs do that you think drives surgeons insane.
under communicating when you're pushing boundaries.
Okay, I
if
like
you're-
that.
Sometimes if you have, like we talked a lot about relationships with surgeons, if you do have a good relationship, you may be able to hard protocol gets sent out to every PT. You've worked with surgeon enough to know. If you don't ever have that conversation, build that relationship, that's going to drive the person that you're working with up a wall.
Yeah, awesome. Cope.
Yeah, I
Marketing
agree.
expert.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, and like getting people in same day, day 0, day 1. So we have so many surgeons who are like, no, 1 week, no PT. But I'm like, I'm getting them in. Like
Yep.
I'm going against all of your wishes, and I am having this person in the clinic tomorrow,
Because
early and often.
early and often, and it's about the patient,
Mhm.
right? Okay. What's one thing surgeons do that drive you insane?
Changing recommendations from visit to visit. And I'll mean like gross changes in timeline, I guess, by recommendations.
So, okay, patient walks in, they were told one thing at time of surgery. Now it's like, nope, we're doing the opposite.
Time markers hit, and it's either like, yeah, we've mysteriously added X number of months, not like
Yep.
a week, or hey, I told you this was a really long recovery. Oh wow, you're doing really good. You could probably play in 2 weeks.
Okay, so that would be mine, is the return to sports stuff. It's
Yeah.
nuts. I just had an athlete go back to their surgeon, football player. She had him do one single leg squat, a rep, 3 months out of knee surgery. Her response was, you need to work more on balance.
Yeah, what?
It's crazy.
Get on
It's-
a Bosu ball, maybe it'll
Yeah,
help.
exactly. I'm sure that'll fix it.
That's
What
exactly what we did.
yeah, Zach, or sorry, Sid. What do surgeons do that drive you insane?
Yeah, I think the lack of communication drives me crazy because, again, like I want to have these conversations
Yep.
because I think it helps better us both. And if you're in healthcare, I would hope that your goal is the same as mine, and that's let's get this person in front of me better.
Yep.
I hate when docs clear people without even having them do anything, or they're like, yeah, you look great. And then the person comes to see you the next day. They're like, they didn't even touch me. Like,
Yep.
didn't look at how straight my knee was or how much rotation I had in my shoulder. Like put some onus on the decision that you're making for this person. Because you'll have kids come in and be like, I
Sound
got
good.
cleared.
Yeah. I freaking hate that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I also think these docs see 60 patients a day, right? Like they got to get the F out of the room. I think it's like that would be the benefit of the doubt. I wish they would say it's not up to me or I don't see enough, but some of these decisions that they make, by the way, even on surgical versus non-surgical, they have 2 minutes with the patient. I don't envy that. Give me a story where you thought a patient was going to do very poorly in rehab and they actually did very, very well.
I think my example is someone they kind of came in with like the headphones thing.
Yeah.
Another example of that. Maybe
a different one.
Yeah.
A lot of headphones in Baltimore.
Maybe that's why I like reacted a little bit better this time. But it was came in with headphones. We're early post-op. I'm expressing the importance of
and he's got headphones on.
I'm not even sure if you're listening to me. I'm recording in the recording home exercise program. It looks lackadaisical. I'm like having to like set my phone down, like adjust, like, no, man, like this is what we're after. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be
okay. So what made it good? How'd you do that?
I doubled down on like this is not something like it's now or never for some of these things.
Scared him
a little bit of fear tactic, and just explained like these. I think doubling down on some of the check boxes things. Like, look, we're not looking for answers. We're checking boxes at this point. You had so many questions. A lot of those questions were answered. That's why we got the surgery. It's gonna be boring, and doubling down on like. I said to this kid, I think your biggest barrier is boredom. He like kind of looked at me. He's like, oh, not like the major surgery. It's like, no, because you're sitting here, you're not listening to me. You have your headphones in. This is step one. That's going to help you jump.
Right.
Or this is going to help you throw really hard. And if we're making it a little bit more broad, but explaining that kind of helped him conceptualize of like, you know what? Yeah, this sucks. I can't sit passively and expect to get better. There was a reason I was at the place that I was to get injured. I'm going to make sure that never effing happens again.
Dude, so often that conversation doesn't go well. Somehow you broke through with that kid. How did you do it?
I mean, it was a recognition that if I was looking at from a tissue change standpoint, was we needed to sit and do something a little bit more deliberate. If it's lackadaisical in front of me, it'll be lackadaisical at home. And like my willingness to spend 15 minutes over educating, buying in, and then doubling down on the optimism of like, dude, look at what this did.
Yeah.
This is huge. Is it the exercise itself? Like, I think we all kind of know. No, there's a bunch of different things that could have worked, but the ability to really sit, listen, see this celebration of like a little success was his way of being like, oh yeah, like, you know what? You're right. Like I'm going to do this and I'm going to do well. I'm going to show you wrong. Cause some of the fear tactic was like, I've seen this go really bad, man.
Yeah.
Like, and this is kind of the vibe I'm getting.
That's important. By the way, a lot of patients don't know how bad it can be. Like and their surgeon will tell them like, you're going to be fine in 9 months or whatever. No one talks about what happens in between. So it's awesome that you pulled on your own experience and times when it went poorly. I think that goes a long way. Cope.
I think the example that I'm going to give is more on a person who has either like been in PT before and didn't see success, or the person who is like, they just want to have surgery, but a doc told them that they need to try PT first. Treated both types of those people. Those are tough because that person already has an idea of how this is going to go in their head. Now I have to completely 180 that. And not only 180 it, but like, I got to get them better. Like, I have to prove to them that either the other why the other PT that they were doing didn't work and why this is, and then vice versa. Like, you don't need, like, that's why they're sending you here, is because you don't need surgery. They want this to be successful. You should want this to be successful. Those are tough because You have to change a mindset.
You have to change your mindset, but I think one of the ways I've seen that work is stuff that you guys have hit on, which is like celebrating successes, reminding them what they couldn't do, reminding them sometimes it's worthwhile, like checking in, like, hey, did your last therapist ever do this? Have you ever done this before? Or remember when you couldn't push your knee over your toes, and now look at you, like that's only going to continue to get better. That's what makes your guys' sessions so awesome. And I think that probably helps you, like in that scenario where the patient isn't necessarily bought in. One way to get them to buy in, give them a great session. You guys did an awesome job of delineating and picking out what it is that makes your guys' sessions great. I think you gave the audience a ton. You gave me a ton to like think about and like stuff for me to evaluate on my own sessions. You guys have been awesome. Tell the millions of sports PTs across the world that are listening to the True Sports PT podcast how they can follow all of your stuff online.
Adams_DPT on Instagram.
That's rough. Okay. Cope?
Dr. Sid Cope, Instagram.
How do you spell Sid?
SYD.
The only way.
Australia. None of this I. Get out of here.
Okay, Australia. I like that. Everyone listening, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the True Sports PT podcast. Find us on Instagram, True Sports PT. Super simple. If you want to work with studs like this, we're always looking to hire. Send us your resume. Send us your CV. Just shoot me a DM. Would love to talk to you. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.